So this story came out the other day. I thought it was pretty interesting. ICC, that's the International Criminal Court, issues arrest warrant for Putin over alleged war crimes, including unlawful deportation of children. The International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin, accusing him of war crimes in Ukraine. The ICC announced the warrant on Friday and said Putin is allegedly responsible for the war crime of unlawful deportation of children, of population, unlawful deportation of population, and then in parentheses, children, and that of unlawful transfer of population, children, from occupied areas of Ukraine to the Russian Federation. Separately, the court issued a warrant for Maria Lvova-Belova, nice name, Russia's Commissioner for Children's Rights, on the same charges. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan opened an investigation into possible war crimes against humanity and genocide in Ukraine a year ago. He highlighted during 4 trips to Ukraine that he was looking at alleged crimes against children and the targeting of civilian infrastructure. Moscow has reportedly denied being responsible for a number of war crimes they've been accused of since invading Ukraine. They are, quote, there are reasonable grounds to believe that Putin bears individual criminal responsibility for the aforementioned crimes. Fox News reported on Friday that Moscow responded to the arrest warrants by saying they are not part of the International Criminal Court and they have no responsibility to the organization. Quote, the decisions of the International Criminal Court have no meaning for our country, including from a legal point of view, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said in the statement. So, I mean, this is the exact thing the U.S. says, by the way. This is the exact thing the U.S. says. Like, oh, you can't come after us because we're not even part of your shitty little court. The court's president, Pyotr Hofmansky, said the execution of these warrants will depend on international cooperation. In other words, we really don't have a way of enforcing this, but we just hope that somebody will enforce it and the international community will cooperate. That's kind of the gist of what they're saying there. So they're just brushing it aside. Look, in terms of the specific war crimes that Putin committed, I think there's a laundry list of them. I don't know about the unlawful transfer of children thing, the kidnapping thing. I really have no idea about that. I've never read any articles about that. I've never seen any evidence of that. But to me, that's really beside the point, because what we know for sure is there's been targeting of civilian infrastructure without a doubt, and even purposeful killing of civilians. There was a video that went viral on Twitter the other day of a Russian soldier just executing in cold blood a Ukrainian who they had as their prisoner. You know, he was standing there smoking a cigarette and they just gunned him down. And so that alone is a war crime. So you have the purposeful targeting of civilians, the purposeful targeting of civilian infrastructure, just the illegal and offensive invasion against a country that didn't attack them. That's the other part of this. Now, my contention to you guys, I mean, Putin admitted this in his speech when he said that Russia was going to invade and do the special military operation or whatever they called it. He basically said, like, Ukraine is a fake state and we want to get back to the glory of the Russian Empire. Which is kind of like, hey, idiot, these are the things you're supposed to, like, cover. You're supposed to stick to your justification and rationalizations, right? Just like when the U.S. invaded Iraq. Oh, Saddam worked with Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. And he kept, making that point, and then they had to move the goalpost. Oh, he's just a really bad guy and a dictator, bro. So, but you have to, like, stick with your line of BS so that people don't see your real reasons. And he admitted in the launch of the invasion, like, yeah, it's a fake state and it's ours, and we're gonna go ahead and take it back. But the other thing is, it's not a coincidence that they just found oil and gas off the coast of Crimea a year before Putin invaded into Crimea. That was what, 2012, 2014, roughly thereabouts. And then same thing here. He invades Ukraine. This is soon after they had discovered massive natural gas deposits in Ukraine, like right after that. So there's so many parallels to the Iraq War, because that was also one of the reasons the U.S. invaded Iraq, was also we wanted control of the oil. And the oil production shot up massively after we invaded and took control of the infrastructure. So there are many parallels there. My point is, I don't know about the specific war crimes they're trying to get him on, but he's guilty of so many of them that they should probably go for the slam dunk cases. But it's all going to come to naught anyway, because our international institutions are so hollowed out and vapid, and you don't have everybody signing on to them. And this is Russia throwing back in the U.S.'s face what the U.S. says as well about the International Criminal Court. In fact, the Pentagon tried to block these International Criminal Court charges against Russia because they felt like if we open this door, they could come after us too, meaning U.S. leaders who are war criminals. And we just covered that story not too long ago. But look, my reaction is very simple. totally based. Go after Vladimir Putin. Nothing's going to come of this, but that sucks. I wish we lived in a system where there was a law and order at the international scale, and people could be held accountable for their crimes, because I think that these innocent civilians, their lives mattered, and they're not treated like that, right? I mean, it's still a very primitive type system that we live under, where internationally there's very little justice. But I would go after Putin, and I would also go after George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, at the very least. I mean, we're just getting started, because, funny enough, this was just the 20-year anniversary of Iraq. Just happened a few days ago, the Iraq invasion. And I want to remind everybody what we're dealing with here. Now, this is an article that came out, I think, in 2013. And so it's been way worse. It's way worse now than it was then. But this was the most comprehensive breakdown of the war in Iraq that I've ever seen. And I brought it up on a number of occasions. So here's what they say. Business Insider article based on a report about what happened on the ground. Brookings Institute report, the Cost of War project. This is what happened on the ground in Iraq. There were 189,000 direct war deaths, 4,488 U.S. service personnel killed directly, 32,223 troops injured, and that doesn't include PTSD, 134,000 civilians killed directly, 655,000 people who died in Iraq since the invasion that would not have died if the invasion had not occurred. 150 reporters were killed. 2.8 million people who remain either internally displaced or have fled the country. 1.7 trillion is the amount in war expenses spent by the U.S. Treasury Department through fiscal year 2013. Obviously, way more now. When all said and done, it's $7 trillion. $5,000 is the amount that was spent per second in the war. $350,000 is the cost to deploy just one American military member. $490 billion is the amount in war benefits owed to war veterans. $7 trillion is what it's going to cost when all is said and done by 2053. $20 billion is the amount paid to KBR, Kellogg Brown and Root. It's a contractor responsible for equipment and services. They got no bid contracts, by the way. $3 billion is the amount of KBR payments Pentagon auditors consider, quote, questionable. So that's basically what they were stealing, what the defense contractors were stealing. $60 billion is the amount paid for reconstruction, which was ruled a waste due to corruption and shoddy work. $4 billion is the amount owed to the U.S. by Iraq before the invasion. $1.6 million is the gallons of oil used by U.S. forces each day in Iraq. $12 billion is the cost per month of the war by 2008. $7 billion is the amount owed to Iraq by the U.S. after the war. And they go on to say it cost $20 billion just to do air conditioning there. We have $546 million in missing weapons, 190,000 guns missing, 110,000 AK-47s. 40% is how much of an increase there was in Iraqi oil production after we invaded. What a coincidence. $5 billion is the revenue from Iraqi oil in 2003. $85 billion is the revenue from Iraqi oil in 2011. And then we have $150 billion is the amount that oil companies are expected to invest in oil development over the next decade. $75 billion is the approximate amount expected to go to American subcontracting companies, largest of all, Halliburton. And then 0 is, of course, the number of nuclear weapons of mass destruction that were found, though a bunch of chemical weapons were discovered, and we knew about those existing because we sold them to Saddam Hussein. We gave it to him at the height of his atrocities against the Kurds. So this is the Iraq war. So you want to go after Vladimir Putin for his war crimes? Sign me up, 100% on board with it. But in order to maintain legitimacy, in order to be serious about justice truly being blind and the system truly being fair, arrest Bush, arrest Cheney, bring them all up on war crimes. And a day where Putin, Bush, and Cheney all go down for their war crimes would be a good day. But again, I won't hold my breath for it because the reaction from the Russian government and the U.S. government is basically piss off. We don't abide by your little court. We don't believe in law and order. We believe in us above everybody else. We believe in no consequences for us because we've defined ourselves as the good guy. That's what Putin says vis-a-vis Russia. That's what U.S. leaders say about the U.S. And they're all wrong. They're all wrong. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal, Kyle, and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.